Yeah, now it feels like a really weird time to talk about DC movies, but I kind of feel like they're worth revisiting at this point. It seems that DC has finally found their path to quality films after years of struggling and weird decisions. So let's talk about the change in quality in the DC movie universe. The DC Universe got off to what, in my opinion, would be a pretty rough start. I thought Man of Steel was fine, if a bit bland, until the final act, which I thought was truly horrifying. Batman v Superman was pretty baffling as a film due to decisions like Batman killing tons of people, to the casting of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Now, I understand these movies have their fans, I'm just not one of them, and I think Snyder's vision for this universe missed the mark in a big way. Then I think Suicide Squad was mostly a disaster, despite some decently strong performances. Then Wonder Woman, which we'll talk about in a minute, was pretty great. Then finally we arrive at Justice League, which was sort of a tonal Frankenstein's monster of a film, and it just kind of ends up being nothing. I mean, I found it more enjoyable than Man of Steel and BVS, but that is not saying much for me. So in summary on this part, DC was in a pretty bad position with only 1 out of 5 films receiving mostly positive reception. Which of course leads us into Wonder Woman was kind of the first sign of hope for me with these movies. While there was potential and something interesting from what Snyder had been doing, it just never really landed for me. Wonder Woman, on the other hand, was just kind of a joy to watch. The movie showcased a hero just being heroic, despite the gruesome nature of the conflict taking place around her. Gal Gadot delivered a performance that felt satisfying for the character I was watching on screen, and Chris Pine provided a great foil and good chemistry for Gadot to play off of. Even the side characters had decent characterization. This movie has a lot of similarities to the first Captain America movie, but I'll say here, aside from Bucky Barnes, none of the characters in Cap's little band of heroes had nearly as much characterization as these guys. I see a lot of criticism for the third act, and I honestly think that critique is a little bit overblown. Yeah, the final battle is boring and gray, but the act as a whole is not bad. Overall, it's just a pretty enjoyable film with a likable lead and a unique setting for this genre. Then we dip back in quality for a bit with Justice League. Not going to spend too much time talking about this in this video, but this movie just had everything going against it. You had Zack Snyder departing the film due to both tragedy in his personal life and the divisiveness of his previous projects in this franchise, which led to Joss Whedon coming on and trying to rework the film. This resulted in the aforementioned Frankenstein's monster, as it essentially became an attempted tonal mishmash of Watchmen and Firefly.
James, the man they call James. He robbed from the rich and he gave to the poor. Stood up to the man and he gave him what for. Our love for him now ain't hard to explain. The hero of Canton, the man they call James.
Back to the positive stuff. I found Aquaman to be quite fun. It's a big, dumb, absurd movie that commits so hard to what it is that it pulls it off pretty well. Jason Momoa brings enough joy and charisma to his performance that he could carry this entire thing on his back if he had to. He doesn't, though, because this movie is kind of bonkers awesome. I mean, it has an octopus playing the drums, an arena fight with characters' pros and cons listed out, a massive battle with crab people, long shot action scenes like this and this shot. Are there problems you could point out in Aquaman? Yeah, sure, but James Wan delivered some superb world building and a pretty fun time. It's just fun, but also manages to be like ridiculously epic at the same time. Then, most recently, we got... And I think this is actually my favorite of DC's current slate of films. It's really goofy, but it also has a ton of heart. The emotional core of this movie is this foster family that is just intensely likable. You can almost take the superhero aspects out of Shazam and still have a narrative that's pretty satisfying here. The superhero side of the story does deliver some fun action beats, though, and provides someone I found to be an incredibly compelling villain in Dr. Savannah. He's sympathetic to a degree, but also horrifyingly evil. Good stuff. Shazam is able to blend pretty ridiculous fantasy elements, superhero beats, and a solid coming-of-age story together to create a pretty satisfying film. Looking forward, we have a pretty interesting lineup of movies. First up, we have Todd Phillips' Joker movie starring Joaquin Phoenix and produced by Martin Scorsese that looks really strange and interesting. Then we have Birds of Prey, which doesn't have much information out there that I know of, but it does star Margot Robbie, whose performance as Harley Quinn was one of the few bright spots in Suicide Squad. After that, there's Wonder Woman 1984, featuring the return of stars Gal Gadot and Chris Pine, as well as director Patty Jenkins. Good stuff there. Matt Reeves, director of the last two Planet of the Apes movies, is taking up Batman, featuring a younger Batman and showcasing the detective side of the character, something new that we haven't seen before. And DC picked up James Gunn, writer-director of Guardians of the Galaxy movies, to make a Suicide Squad sequel. Then there's Aquaman 2 and a bunch of unconfirmed or limbo projects. All of this sounds super interesting to me. Will it all fit together into a cohesive universe a la the MCU? Probably not, but I don't think everything needs to take that approach. Remember, that approach has worked like once. The MCU. Maybe just giving writers and directors their shot at making a movie that interests them is a good way to keep this genre fresh and could be a cool counterbalance in superhero entertainment to what Marvel is doing. Homogenized entertainment is boring, and I'm glad that DC is gearing up to do some weird shit. And that's all I really wanted to say about the state of DC for now. Bit more of a positive take than the last time I talked about them. Sorry for the slowdown in my videos, by the way. I have a pretty fast-paced job now. It's super fun and interesting, but sometimes I'm just worn out when I get home, you know? I'm working on getting myself back into a better workflow for these videos, though, so I can get back to a more consistent upload schedule. And if you want to see some of those future videos when they come out, maybe subscribe. That'd be great, and I'd really appreciate it. If you liked this video, you should like it, as that's really helpful to me and this channel in some way. Thanks for watching this, though, and have a good one.